Am I the a-hole for refusing to go search for my adult brother, 28 male, when he walked off from a family party in the heat? My brother, 28 male, and I, 33 female, were at a family party at my aunt's house. He is introverted, and has walked off once before, and I am basically his only friend. Early in the party, we had an awkward argument where he made comments about why marriage wouldn't work for him, that made me unsure what to say, so I asked to change the subject. We had another petty talk at the party. He snuck out without his phone, leaving a brief text before he left saying not to wait for him to a small family chat. It is a 7-mile walk to our home in severe heat. I was the last to go to our home, and then we all noticed he wasn't in the house. My mom, who had to go to work, and cousins, who were not in the chat so they didn't know he wrote the text, panicked and demanded that I immediately drive around to search for him since I am his sister. I said no because he is a 28-year-old adult who chose to leave, and I didn't feel it was my responsibility. They did not like my tone. As I waited for the right time to look if he did take longer than the map says, my cousin, 29 female, left her house, found him near the corner of our street. She yelled at me, saying I always had treated my brother like crap, that family needs to stick together even with differences, and that something terrible could have happened to him on the way. I feel he is an adult who made a choice, but my family says I should have still looked for him. Am I the a-hole? So, am I the a-hole? Vote Y or N in the comments. Am I the a-hole for telling my friend he can come to our outings but his girlfriend with OCD can't? English is not my first language. So, I'll try to be brief. I, 20F, have a group of friends I've known since school. We don't see each other often anymore because adulting is chaotic, but we try to get together every 2 months or so. There's about 6 people on this group, including Mark, 22 male, who recently got a girlfriend who I'll call Sarah, 21F. Sarah has bad OCD and has loads of rules to what she can and can't tolerate, which originally wasn't a problem. Some of us are also neurodivergent / have conditions that required adaptations, so we adapted our outings whenever she wanted to come, since she was polite and nice. Everything was fine for a few months, until one of our other friends casually asked about my dermatitis and if it was better. I have contact dermatitis, which is not contagious in any way, shape or form, but it flares up often. Sarah heard it, and deemed me a contaminated person. Ever since then, she's been treating me like I have the plague. She won't touch anything I have touched, won't sit near me, and will make a disgusted face any time I'm around, which at first I took. She has a condition, I don't care what she does. But she started doing it to other people, like warning people not to sit near me, and once at a restaurant told a waiter to be careful not to touch me when he handed me my glass or he would contaminate himself and everyone he served. Follow for part 2, dropping right after this. Part 2. At this point, me and everyone in the group are incredibly bothered by it, and one of our other friends even told her and Mark that she can do what she wants, but it's crap to keep saying that to people. Here's where I may be the a-hole. We were planning our next get-together and I told the group that if Sarah was coming I wouldn't go. I don't deserve to be treated like a monster for something entirely out of my control and harmless to others and be shamed by it. Since the group was already bothered, we all decided that Mark was welcome, but we didn't want Sarah around until she dealt with that fear. He wasn't online at the time, so I texted him in private, explained that Sarah was making everyone uncomfortable, and we'd prefer she didn't come until she could work through at least not telling everyone not to touch me. I also said we understand if he didn't want to come without her. She's his girlfriend after all and he has to support her. Well, a few hours later he blew up, called me an ableist a-hole, said Sarah had seen the messages and hadn't stopped crying, then blocked us all when he saw the group agreed. Am I the a-hole? Should I have not said something to the group and just pretend I didn't hear it? So, am I the a-hole? Vote Y or N in the comments.
Am I the a-hole for pushing my sister-in-law to sell her $60,000 engagement ring? My brother's business is going through severe financial issues, and as a result he and my sister-in-law are in a very bad financial situation. Between my parents, siblings, and other relatives, our family has given them over $150,000 combined to help keep them afloat. They have 3 kids under 3 and are stuck in an $8,500 per month lease until early next year, so their expenses are still extremely high even though their financial circumstances have changed dramatically. At this point, I don't think the family is likely to give them much, if any, additional money. Ideally, we would also eventually get at least some of the money we've already given them back. My sister-in-law has an engagement ring that originally cost around $60,000, and I've been pushing for them to sell it. I'm getting a fair amount of blowback for that. I understand that she wouldn't get anywhere close to the original purchase price and that an engagement ring is highly sentimental. But it's hard for me to reconcile the family having contributed more than $150,000 while they continue to hold on to a luxury asset worth tens of thousands of dollars. At a certain point, it starts to feel like we're subsidizing luxury rather than simply helping a family through a crisis. If they can sell the ring for a meaningful amount, that money could go toward supporting their kids, paying necessary expenses, or potentially repaying some of the family members who stepped in to help them. Other people think I'm being too harsh because it's her engagement ring and has emotional significance. Am I being unreasonable for pushing them to sell it? Edit, I was one of the people who lent them money in case it's unclear. Edit 2, they tried to negotiate out of the lease, but landlord says no unless he can find another tenant. They live in a very landlord-friendly state, so they'd still be on the hook for the remaining rent. So, am I the a-hole? Vote Y or N in the comments.
Am I the a-hole for telling my dad he's the reason none of his kids talk to him anymore after he told me I'm wasting my prime birthing years to go into law school? So my dad has always been the stereotypical Christian conservative man. This is something that, although I don't agree with it at all, I have always tried to be respectful rather than constantly trying to fight and argue with him about his beliefs. He's always been against college as a whole, viewing it as expensive liberal indoctrination. He would constantly ask for what classes I was taking and would have meltdowns over liberal classes. When I told him that I was going to study criminal justice, bold enough to say he wasn't happy. Anyways, so flash forward to 3 months ago when I finally visited my family after not seeing them in person for 4 years, and I decided to bring my boyfriend along. The entire time of our stay, he kept asking about marriage and kids, and my boyfriend and I would keep bringing up how we plan on waiting a little bit until we're more financially stable, especially since we live in a city where everything is pretty expensive. On the last day of our trip, I planned on buying my parents a nice steak dinner and really tried pushing about me wanting to surprise them with some really good news, since I thought that just maybe me telling them I got into law school would make them proud of me. We got there and I told them. My dad, he went on a rant about how I need to reconsider since it's a long time to be in college, how my scholarships surely won't pay for this. How about me making more money than my boyfriend could make him look bad as a man? Who will take care of your kids? And then blowing up even more when my boyfriend mentioned how there's a lot of remote accounting jobs that he honestly would prefer doing over in person. Follow for part 2 dropping right after this. Part 2. Then finally, the dreaded words. Don't you think you're wasting your prime birthing years as a woman to do this? What if you can't have kids by the end of this? A female's body physically can't handle not having babies before her 30s. Don't you think you should focus more on starting an actual family rather than chasing this fantasy? Look at you, you don't look like a lawyer. What if nobody hires you? Then what? You now won't have anything. Why can't you just focus on your actual future? Dead silence across the table. It's like my heart dropped to my stomach as he said that, and out of me at that rate, being so hurt because I genuinely had it in my head that maybe for a second he could look at my hard work and be proud of me, that I told him, "You're so freaking selfish and ignorant. You treat all your kids like they're less than you and then wonder why none of them talk to you. Maybe for once in your life, could you have at least pretended to care about someone other than yourself?" Bold to say, this resulted in him damn near yelling at me and my mom having to get him to go outside to have a smoke to calm down. I've been told by my mom that although she's proud that I stood up for myself, I could have been way nicer about it. So AITA for saying what I said to my dad? So, am I the a-hole? Vote Y or N in the comments. Am I the a-hole for refusing to answer when my family calls me Human Lucy? My name is Lucy, and a few months ago my sister adopted an older dog that was also already named Lucy. I never expected her to rename the dog, and at first we all thought the coincidence was funny. The problem is that my family started calling the dog Lucy and me Human Lucy. I laughed the first few times, but the nickname stuck. I've asked them several times to just call me Lucy and say the dog when they need to clarify, but they keep insisting it's only a joke. At dinner last weekend, my brother introduced me to his new girlfriend as Human Lucy before using my actual name. Everyone laughed, and I told him I was done answering to it. Later, my mom called Human Lucy from the kitchen because she wanted help carrying something, and I ignored her until she used my name. She thinks I was being childish and making a harmless family joke uncomfortable. I don't mind sharing a name with the dog, but I'm tired of being the one who gets a label added to mine. Am I the a-hole? So, am I the a-hole? Vote Y or N in the comments.
Am I the a-hole for uninviting my friend from a vacation because she wanted to break rules and be cheap? One of my favorite hobbies is using credit card and casino comps to get cheap trips. I have several cruise lines that I get free offers for where I pay taxes and fees, usually less than $200, for a 7-night cruise plus extras like gratuities for the staff and any drink or dining packages I may want. My friend had asked what vacation plans I had coming up since I travel quite a bit, and I let her know I had an upcoming trip booked and could add her for around $600 if she was interested. This is for 7 nights in a mini suite, balcony room, more space, just below the suite level. She seemed interested, so I told her to let me know. I gave her the breakout of costs because I wanted to be transparent: $160 for taxes and fees, and $455 for the drink/dining/gratuities to be covered. She seemed interested, so I asked her to double-check the dates worked for her and to let me know if it worked for her. She came back to me a couple of days later and said that she'd be good with the $160, but had done research and didn't want to pay the other $455 in fees because she read that it's not mandatory that you pay gratuities to the staff, and she could order something online so she could sneak alcohol onto the ship. Follow for part 2, dropping right after this. Part 2. Unfortunately, the way this package works is that everyone in the booking has to order it if one person does. I want the convenience of knowing my gratuities are paid and that I can order a drink regardless of where I am without going back to the room to make a drink. I like getting a couple of coffees in the coffee shop, drinks by the pool, wine with dinner, and maybe a couple of drinks in the club at night without having to go back to the room anytime I want something. To me, this is just a part of the experience of being on vacation and doing what I want. I told her that if she felt that way, that maybe it's best that she not come with me and do her own thing. But now she's mad at me because she'd have to pay close to $4,000 to do this trip without my benefits. I don't mind paying for the extras for myself and just count it as a cost of the vacation, but I don't really want to pay for her extras as well. Am I the a-hole for wanting to do vacation the way I want and not giving in to her wanting to be cheap on this? I know for a fact that she can afford it. She just reads something on the internet making her think she's smart to get around the rules. So am I the a-hole? Vote Y or N in the comments.
Am I the a-hole for telling my dad not to have my 18-month-old call him Papa? So my daughter recently started identifying my wife and me by saying either Mama or Dada, followed by her pointing at us respectively. My dad, her grandpa, wanted to join in on the fun and started introducing himself to her as Papa and trying to get her to point at him with that term. I asked him politely not to use that name and instead use Grandpa. I've caught him continuing to use Papa multiple times now and have been reminding him not to use that name. This last time he got upset and combative with me and said it's rude of me to restrict what she calls him and that it's rude of me to decide what he gets called. I have explained to him that my wife is Hispanic, I am white, and that the word Papa is dad in Spanish. Furthermore, I feel uncomfortable with her calling him Papa, as I relate that term to me, not my him. I'm not sure if he used the term Papa for his grandpa as a kid and wants her to do the same, but I have never heard him use Papa for grandpa in my life. Am I the a-hole for deciding what names my daughter calls her grandpa and not allowing him to tell her his name is Papa? Edit: I forgot to include relevant information that people have been asking for in the comments. Yes, my wife also has an issue with the term Papa, and asked me to talk to my dad about it. Yes, I have talked with my dad about options about a different name. When we are visiting my wife's side of the family, I am Papa. I understand there is a difference between Papa and Papa, however, the way my dad has been referring to himself is closer to Papa and not as Papa, and we want to reduce confusion since our daughter is speaking and learning both in English and Spanish. So, am I the a-hole? Vote Y or N in the comments.
AITA for leaving my friend at a concert after she disappeared with a guy. My friend 19 female, and I 18 female, went to a concert together last weekend. It was about an hour from where we live, and we agreed beforehand that we were sticking together and leaving together. Halfway through the concert she started talking to this guy near us. I didn't really care and was doing my own thing, but eventually I realized they were both gone. I texted her asking where she was. Nothing. Called her twice. Nothing. After like 20 minutes she finally texted me saying she was outside with him and to stop worrying about her. I asked if she was coming back because the concert was almost over. She said, probably. Concert ends. Still no sign of her. I called her again and she declined it. I waited around for almost 45 minutes while everyone was leaving. I texted her one last time saying I was leaving in 10 minutes if she didn't come back. Nothing. So I left. About 30 minutes into my drive home she started blowing up my phone asking where I was. Apparently the guy had left and she came back to where we were parked expecting me to still be there. She ended up having to call her mom to come get her. Now she's furious because we specifically agreed we wouldn't leave each other, especially being that far from home. I told her that agreement goes both ways. I'm not standing in an empty concert parking lot indefinitely because she disappeared with some guy and kept ignoring me. She says I should have never left without physically knowing she had a safe way home. I do feel bad that her mom had to drive an hour to get her, and I know girls are supposed to look out for each other in situations like that. Follow for part 2 dropping right after this. Part 2. But I also gave her multiple chances to come back. AITA, edit. After reading your comments, I definitely agree that I could have called security or done more to make sure she was actually safe before I left. I was frustrated and upset in the moment because this shouldn't have even been a problem in the first place. We specifically agreed to stay together because she is known to do things like this, and then she did exactly what I was worried she would do. And for everyone saying I could have called her mom, I couldn't. She had already been living on her own when I met her a year and a half ago. I have never met her parents, never spoken to them, and definitely don't have their phone numbers. I understand that 19 is young, but she is still a 19-year-old adult who has been living on her own for at least a year and a half. You would think someone in that position would make better decisions, and I honestly never thought I would need her mom's phone number in case she disappeared with a guy and stopped answering me. I can admit that I should have done more to confirm she was safe before leaving. I should have contacted security, and if I could go back, that's what I would do differently. But I also don't think it's unreasonable that, in the moment, I expected another adult to be responsible for the decision she was making. So, am I the a-hole? Vote Y or N in the comments.
Am I the a-hole alcohol at kids' party? My M37 son turned 6 recently, and we hosted a pool party for him. It was from noon to 3. He had friends come over, and pizza was eaten, and everyone had fun. Right after I hosted a party for all my friends. It was easier to just clean and prep the house once, and I had prepared for both parties together. There were coolers of booze at the kids' party, stored behind our backyard bar, but it wasn't out and nothing was consumed until the second party crew started showing up. I had a few friends come over about 15 minutes early. A baseball game we all wanted to watch was on, and told them where drinks were and to help themselves. A little before 3, the parents of one of my son's friends came to pick him up, and they were clearly appalled that there was alcohol. She told us she would have never allowed her son to come over with that present and had assumed it was a dry party since it was a kid's party. I tried explaining it was a dry party, that we were hosting back-to-back parties and the first drink was cracked just a few minutes ago. I hadn't consumed anything yet, but she wasn't having any of my explanations. It got real awkward, and I cordially said goodbye. Am I the a-hole? So am I the a-hole? Vote Y or N in the comments.
Am I the a-hole for uninviting my best friend for my birthday trip after finding out they invited someone I specifically said I didn't want there? I planned a 4-day birthday trip with 5 of my closest friends and paid for the Airbnb months in advance. I told everyone from the beginning that I wanted it to be a small group because I didn't want the trip to become chaotic. About 2 weeks before the trip, I found out my best friend had invited another person without telling me. I've met this person several times, but we've never really gotten along. I asked my friend why they invited them, and they said, "It's not a big deal, there's enough space." I told them I wasn't comfortable with it and reminded them that I was paying for most of the Airbnb and that this was supposed to be my birthday trip. They got angry and said I was being controlling and that I was trying to decide who they could be friends with. I eventually told them that if they brought the person anyway, I would rather they not come at all. They said I was ruining our friendship over something stupid. Now 2 of our other friends think I went too far, while the others agree with me. So, am I the a-hole? Vote Y or N in the comments.
Am I the a-hole for telling my roommate's mom that she's been late on rent for 8 months and I've been covering the gap out of my own savings? Me and my roommate, we'll call her Jay, have lived together for almost 3 years, used to be genuinely one of my closest friends. Rent is $1,850 split down the middle, so $925 each. Starting around December she started being a few days late, which whatever, crap happens, but it became a pattern where she'd Venmo me like $400 on the first and then trickle the rest in over like 3 weeks, sometimes not fully catching up before the next month's rent was already due. I started just covering the difference to the landlord because our lease has both our names on it and I was terrified of a late fee or worse hitting my credit. I told myself I'd get reimbursed. Mostly I did, eventually, but there's currently about $1,400 I'm out that she keeps saying she'll figure out this week. Her mom was in town last weekend and picked me up specifically to grab lunch, just the 2 of us, which has never happened before. She point blank asked me how Jay was doing money-wise because apparently Jay asked her for a loan and gave a reason that didn't add up with what her mom knew about her paycheck. I panicked and kind of froze and then just told her. The Venmo pattern, the $1,400, all of it. Her mom was calm about it, said thank you for being honest, and left. I didn't hear anything for 2 days. Then Jay calls me screaming. Apparently her mom confronted her, it turned into a huge fight about irresponsibility, and Jay found out through her mom that I was the source. She's saying I had zero right to discuss her finances with anyone, that it's humiliating, that I weaponized her mother against her, and that our friendship is probably done. I keep going back and forth. On one hand, yeah, it wasn't really my story to tell unprompted like that. Her mom asked me, I didn't go seeking her out. On the other hand, I'm not a bank and I've been quietly stressed about money that isn't mine to be missing for 8 months, and nobody in my life knew that until this happened by accident. My other friends are split. One said I should have just said you'd have to ask her and left it. Another said Jay created this problem the second she involved her mom in a lie that happened to touch me. Am I the a-hole for actually answering the question when it was asked directly? So, am I the a-hole? Vote Y or N in the comments.
Am I the a-hole I keep my bees to sip my new neighbor? Hi, I have gotten a new neighbor at my family's weekend home. They use their property all year around us, mostly on weekends or during holidays. Last weekend the wife asked me what the second building on my property is with the colorful front. It's my bee house. The colorful things are the hive's fronts. She got sour and told me they have to go as she is terrible allergic to bees. I have the hives in the 4th generation and invested a lot of cash in new equipment, new electric honey extractor, several new stainless honey buckets, and rebuild most of the old units, new insulation, new paint, and a lot of new frames as the old ones were about 60 years old. For us, it's a pure hobby farm, as we have only 7 beehives and harvest about 300 to 400 kilograms of honey yearly. Everything is permitted and zoned as a farm. We are exempt from noise regulations and pay way less tax too. The neighbor is raising hell for me to get rid of the bees or else. As I am not there all the time, I cannot watch the property all the time, and cameras are difficult, as we do not have internet out there except of maybe Starlink, which I am unwilling to pay for. The other property of the neighbor is not as nice as ours, as they are in the bottom of the valley, as we are on the south slope and have way more sun in the winter. Therefore the neighbors change a lot. The last 2 each stayed for 2 and 3 years. We own the place for the last 100 years, and the bees have always been there. Sorry for spelling, as no AI tools are allowed here, and I am not a native speaker. Edit. Thanks for the overwhelming support and not the a-hole judgments. To clear some things up, I am not in the US, but in Austria, Europe, but I translated most terms into the US equivalent for ease of reading. I will get cameras with an internal SD card and look into a mesh WLAN option to also store the pictures locally on a small server. The bees will stay and hum as they are supposed to. The sad thing is, with the previous neighbors I had a great deal. They get 12 kilograms of honey each year, and I access to their Starlink internet. The new ones are more difficult. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to wear my post. So am I the a-hole? Vote Y or N in the comments.
Am I the a-hole for not helping a little girl when she fell and telling her mom that her daughter isn't my responsibility? This past weekend, I, 21 female, went to a casual soccer game at a local park with my parents. It wasn't anything big or held in a stadium, just teams playing at a park while their families and friends watched. Anyways, my mom and I aren't really interested in soccer, but we still go to sit together, eat, relax, and listen to the chisme lol. There are several family friends that attend every weekend game with us. We find a spot, set up chairs and chill during the game. On this day, a family friend, Jessica, whose 7-year-old daughter, Jasmine, was sitting next to me. Anyways, at one point, I bought a plate of Mexican food from one of the vendors and put it on my lap while I ate. Someone had Mexican music playing, and the women in our group were singing. Jasmine decided to stand on her folding chair and dance. These weren't sturdy plastic chairs. They were the foldable kind with fabric seats attached to metal legs. I said that she should get down because she was probably going to fall, but no one stopped her. And I didn't either, because she isn't my child, so I obviously won't grab her. I continued eating, and sure enough, Jasmine's foot slipped through one of the gaps in the chair and she fell flat on her face. The chair wasn't very high, and she didn't get any serious injuries and not even a bruise since she landed on grass and dirt. I didn't laugh at her, but I also didn't immediately get up to help. Follow for part 2, dropping right after this. Part 2. Jessica calmed her. Then she looked at me and said, "You could have picked her up." I looked up because I honestly thought I had misheard her. When she repeated herself, I became irritated. I didn't yell, but I said, your child isn't my responsibility. I don't have to do anything for her. I even said she was going to fall. I'm not going to grab your kid just because I think she might fall, especially when I'm sitting here eating. That's where I might have been the AH. Jessica and some of the other women stared at me like I was crazy. Her mom said I could have at least checked on Jasmine and that, if my food fell while trying to get up, I could have just bought another plate. I said, hell no. Are you going to pay for it? Honestly, I hate the mentality that I'm supposed to sit there and look stupid while someone blames me for something that wasn't my fault. My mom gave me the look that said, wait until we get home. LOL, she was really upset with me afterward. She agrees that Jasmine's fall wasn't my fault and that I didn't do anything wrong by not grabbing her, but she thinks I should have stayed quiet. My dad, on the other hand, is completely on my side. He's a no BS type of person and thinks Jasmine's mother shouldn't have tried to make her child my responsibility. So, am I the a-hole for telling her that her daughter wasn't my responsibility and refusing to apologize for not picking her up? So, am I the a-hole? Vote Y or N in the comments.
Am I the a-hole for accusing a meat raffle organizers of cheating? My husband and I recently stumbled upon a meat raffle at a local bar. The venue was quiet, and we had a clear view of the raffle table. When an item we liked came up, we decided to buy a few tickets to support the cause. That is when things got strange. After selling tickets for that round, the organizers returned to the table, turned their backs to the room, and spent a noticeable amount of time fiddling with the ticket bucket. While they might have just been separating the tickets, the lack of transparency was concerning. Moments later, they drew the winning ticket, and one of the raffle organizers won. We were surprised that staff could participate, and it felt unethical. The pattern continued. For the next desirable item, a friend sitting right at the raffle table won. For the item after that, the person announcing the winners on the microphone won. At this point, we were convinced the raffle was rigged. A man wearing the uniform of the beneficiary organization sat next to us to buy a drink and tried to talk up the event. We flatly told him we suspected the drawing was fixed. Word traveled fast. The person holding the ticket bucket approached us, clearly offended, and defensively asked if we wanted to draw the next winner. We declined, wanting no part of it. The bartender drew the next ticket instead, and a regular patron won. We decided it was time to go. As we walked past the raffle table to leave, the entire group stared us down as if we were the bad guys. Were we the a-holes for being overly suspicious and not getting the organizers the benefit of the doubt? So, am I the a-hole? Vote Y or N in the comments.
Am I the a-hole for asking my brother and wife to vacate the basement? I'm 4 years older than my brother, and we've always had a unique relationship. Growing up, my mother was unable to keep a job, so when I was 16, I quit high school and got a full-time job to provide for my mom and him. When I started working, I took on the role of a father in a financial sense. I provided for his basic needs and gave him an allowance. He paid me back by being a great student and earning a full-ride scholarship abroad. I'm 37 now, married, and have a decent quality of life. My brother got married too and just finished his master's degree, so they moved back to the city. He and his wife just started working but had no savings, so I offered to let them move into my basement for a year to save a little money and reconnect, as we haven't lived in the same city for over a decade. They've been here for about 4 months now, and I feel disrespected and unappreciated in my own home. Here are a few scenarios. At the beginning, I was super excited and tried to be hospitable. I cooked for them and tried to be a nice host, but they always complained about the food. It was never to their liking. I took them out for dinner. Same story, not to their liking. I even took them on a trip, and from the hotels to the food, it was still not to their liking. Follow for part 2 dropping right after this. Part 2. However, my brother's wife has cooked a few times and cannot stop talking about how great their food is, asking us, "Aren't you happy that I'm here to cook for you?" But that's fine. People have different tastes. They started criticizing things around my house, from the cleanliness due to dog hair, to the brand of utensils and kitchenware we use. They even went so far as to ask me to throw away my stuff and use theirs instead. I asked my brother to take turns cutting the grass. He never did, and when I confronted him, he said he was too busy and tired. I noticed my sister-in-law would not reply with a hello or good morning to my wife. I decided to talk to them, and my brother said that's just how she is, how she was raised, and that she has no filter. I talked to them about all these issues, but their behavior didn't change, or they would say good morning, thanks, or it's good with a sarcastic tone. I got upset and started doing the exact same things they did. Am I the a-hole for that? My brother complained and told me I was being rude toward him, and I explained that I was just mirroring them. Now, my wife and I have talked, and we are going to ask them to move out in 2 months. Am I the a-hole? So, am I the a-hole? Vote Y or N in the comments.